feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign.
Hi everyone, I am back doing yet another response video to TB. After I posted yesterday's response video, he almost immediately jumped on and has pretty much been going at it with different people ever since. He is being straight up dishonest and, of course, saying more nonsensical things. So I just had to respond again. I went through all of his comments. I picked 4 of his comments that, for the most part, encapsulate most everything of what he's been saying. The first one had some accusations that I wanted to address. I'm just going to read it, and it should also be on the screen. But he says, you need to make a separate video where you strawmanned my rebuttal to Kyle, saying the globe model works by citing that NASA uses a flat, stationary model for practical purposes. You lied and said I claimed this was flat Earth proof. So here is the comments. The very first one, Kyle asked for a singular model that shows everything. So here's TB's initial response to Kyle, and it was to claim that there are maps, globes, and models, and they all come from flat Earth elevation angle measurements. This is my initial response. This is the first time that I expand upon exactly what a model is. We're going to be swinging back to that towards the end of the video. This is TB's response. You can see he's still talking about elevation angle measurements, and he even gives an experiment that can be done, and he ends it with, that's the flat Earth. He fully knows that his intent is to claim that the Earth is flat. He could not possibly imply that any more heavily. And ignoring that, he flat out said it. Then he accuses me of lying. He's a desperate, desperate little goon. All right, so this next comment, it was kind of a long one, so I'm going to break it up into 4 parts. The first part, he says, you then said latitude lines on globes and maps prove the globe model. Latitude lines are created from flat Earth elevation angle measurements. Then you said that the air rotates with the ground without proving any evidence that the ground rotates. So baseless assertion fallacy there. So again, this is him trying to sound smart. There's no baseless assertion fallacy that I'm aware of. If anything, this would be his favorite fallacy of beg the question or maybe some type of non sequitur. Now, there is something called the proof by assertion fallacy, which is what he is entirely guilty of, because he just keeps repeating the same thing despite it being refuted. In the next section, he brings up refraction again. He says that I claim that refraction can move Earth curve from in front of objects to behind the objects on different days. That's not physically possible. A reasonable person would realize that the horizon is not geometric from the curve. No, you complete numpty. I did not say that refraction can move Earth curve. I said refraction can allow you to see around a curve. Refracting is actually a simple concept that even children understand after their first time going swimming. So then he says, I stated that there are satellites, celestial objects in orbit. Orbits beg the question, God, he loves that things are falling around the ground, which you have no Earth curve seen or measured. Boy, this guy has extreme confidence despite not knowing what he's talking about. And no amount of word salad is going to hide that fact. Yes, there are satellites in orbit. This is demonstrable. And once you actually know their speed and position, you can accurately calculate their position on the globe. As for orbits beg the question that things are falling around the ground, I'm not entirely sure what he means. That whole sentence there is worded funny. I think what he's talking about are how objects orbit around the planet, obviously, but in the real world. In reality, they're always falling, but at such a speed that they never actually hit the surface. In fact, it's a common misconception that weightlessness for those orbiting the planet is caused by a lack of gravity. It's not. It's caused by perpetually falling. That's that's how we orbit around the planet. And once we get up there, we don't have to use that much fuel because it's just a constant falling. Yeah, adjustments have to be made here and there, but that's how the ISS can stay up there for as long as it does. That being said, an object could still move around another object, whether it was curved or not. So regardless of what he meant, it makes zero sense. He then goes on to accuse me, once again, of begging the question fallacy. There are no exceptions where you can use a fallacy to prove a conclusion, he says. Once you use fallacy, the argument is invalid. See how concise I am? I didn't need to make a whole video to defeat you. I know the arguments too well. This guy is a walking Dunning-Kruger graph. Again, he's using his favorite fallacy, but he's getting things wrong like he always does. I've explained this to him multiple times, but he's intentionally being obtuse. And he just continues to demonstrate that he really has no understanding of informal logic, but wants to continue using informal logic terminology that he doesn't understand. No, fallacy does not automatically invalidate an argument. He doesn't know what validity means. An argument is valid when it's structured in such a way that if all of the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. So premise 1 is all desserts are delicious. Premise 2 is chocolate-covered ants are desserts. So the conclusion would be chocolate-covered ants are delicious. In that case, if both premises were true, then the conclusion would have to be true. But clearly it can be argued that neither of those premises are true. He conflates validity with soundness. This is something I actually mentioned in my first Flat Earth video, and maybe I will do a video sequence on a series, I should say, on informal logic. That might be interesting. Soundness is where an argument is valid and its premises are true. Also, he doesn't understand what argument from fallacy is, where one assumes that if an argument contains a fallacy, then the conclusion must be false. For someone who thinks he is so knowledgeable when it comes to informal logic, he seems to get a lot of the concepts wrong. So next is one of his newer claims, and it's quite out there. You said that the video links I sent you don't take refraction into account. The claim is that the horizon is geometric, so if the horizon is ever more than 1.23 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, then it's beyond geometric possibility. It can't be Earth curve, moron. This is mind-boggling. 1.23 times the square root of the observer's height. Where the hell did he get this? I am just going to say that even if the Earth somehow was flat, that statement would still be nonsensical gibberish. That scale is so tiny, 1.23 times the square root, that's a tiny value, that it could probably be demonstrated false with a scale model. Again, I would love to know where he got that from. Maybe he can explain it to me. I can go through the math and see what the hell he's talking about, but complete nonsense as far as I'm concerned. So next he says, you saying that light is bending won't move a physical hill in front of platforms to behind them. Wish this guy could be more coherent. It's not a we see too far argument. It literally debunks the horizon being Earth curve. Your Earth can't go through physical objects it was in front of one day to be behind them on a different day. Oh boy. So yeah, I brought up refraction. I never said it would move anything. The light just curves, so you can see around objects that you wouldn't normally be able to. I have no idea what he's talking about with the Earth can go through physical objects in front one day to behind them in a different. He has entirely misrepresented refraction because he has no understanding of it. Maybe he's never gone swimming. I don't know. So then he says you should learn what a citation and the purpose is for a citation. Citations are used to support an argument. He doesn't know what citation is. I cited USA Today writing that factually stated that NASA uses a flat, non-rotating Earth for its practical purposes. That refutes Kyle's claim that the rotating sphere model works. It doesn't matter what USA Today's opinion is about what they believe the Earth is proven to be. It's not dishonest to use a citation giving facts and not use the opinion piece. No, this doesn't refute Kyle's claim. For one, the language being used is a bit inaccurate. I cannot find who the original person was that supposedly said flat, non-rotating Earth. It just said experts say, as cited in the USA Today article. But I can almost guarantee that they were not using it in the context that he thinks they are. It's unlikely they meant this in the sense of a scientific model. NASA in no way uses a scientific model of the flat Earth. What they do sometimes is they simply do not take the Earth's rotation and curvature into account, because what they are doing doesn't need it. But there are plenty of times where they do, and I already gave him examples in my previous video. I'll use the same one. Newtonian gravity is wrong, but his equations still have such a high degree of accuracy that they still work in many situations. This does not disprove relativity, which is why relativity has been taken into account in many other situations, like satellites having to take time dilation into account. And last but not least, one of his newer ones, models describe, not explain, clown. Suddenly, it ain't about the model working anymore now that you learn NASA uses a stationary flat Earth. This guy is frustrating. Remember in the beginning where I said I was going to swing back around to where I told him exactly what a model was? Yeah, here we are. Here is a definition from Britannica. The generation of a physical, conceptual, or mathematical representation of a real phenomenon that is difficult to observe directly. Scientific models are used to explain and predict the behavior of real objects or systems. For some reason, if he doesn't like Britannica, if you simply Google what is a scientific model, you are going to get all sorts of places with the same basic definition. The very first response I got was from an educational site in Australia, which defines it as a scientific model is a physical and or mathematical and or conceptual representation of a system of ideas, events, or processes. Scientists seek to identify and understand patterns in our world by drawing on their scientific knowledge to offer explanations that enable the patterns to be predicted. That's what science is. Science is trying to explain the things that we observe. It is trying to understand the nature of reality. If only science could explain why this guy is such a colossal douchebag. He is a walking Dunning-Kruger graph. I think he will keep going with his intellectual dishonesty and ignorance. I'm not sure if I will do any more response videos to him, but maybe I will. He seems to like the attention, and I'm a firm believer that ignorance should always be challenged. Actually, you know what? Off the cuff here, TB, that's his name, right? TB. You know what? Let's do this. Instead of going back and forth with you trying to change definitions, make false allegations of fallacy, let's just start over again. It is blatantly obvious that you are a flat earther. Stop trying to pretend like that's not where you're going with all of this. Everybody sees through you. If you want to back up your claim, which you should be willing to do because truth does not fear criticism, I don't fear you trying to criticize the globe earth model. I take it as a challenge. So why don't you give me your best 3 arguments or pieces of evidence, however you want to look at it, for the flat earth model? And let's do this. Let's talk about that. Anyway, that's it for this response. As I always say, if anybody's got any feedback or maybe you got certain topics you want me to touch upon, just let me know, and peace.
Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting.